The rifle clattered to the concrete floor. Master Chief Derek Sullivan ripped it from her hands, his scarred face twisted with contempt. "You lost Sweetheart Girl Scout camps 50 miles south." Elena Vasquez didn't reach for the weapon. She reached for her sidearm instead. 57 seconds, she said quietly. "That's all I need to drop all 5 of you." 5 Navy SEALs, 5 of America's deadliest warriors, and a 25-year-old woman just challenged them to a gunfight. What happened next would change everything, because Elena wasn't just any woman. She was a ghost's daughter, and she came for blood. Subscribe now and follow this story to the end. Comment your city below. Let me see how far this story travels. The shooting range at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado had seen legends. It had witnessed the making of warriors, the breaking of hopefuls, and the forging of the deadliest operators on Earth. But it had never seen anything like this. Elena Vasquez stood motionless at the entrance, 5 feet 3 inches, 120 pounds, black hair pulled tight in a ponytail, eyes the color of frozen steel, 25 years old, and completely alone. Master Chief Derek Sullivan crossed his arms and studied her like a specimen under glass. 48 years of hard living had carved deep lines into his face. 2 decades of war had filled those lines with stories, most of them ugly, all of them bloody. He'd watched 1,000 recruits wash out of SEAL training, seen men twice this woman's size crumble under the pressure, watched them quit, cry, beg to go home. This one wouldn't last 5 minutes. "You got about 3 seconds to turn around," Sullivan said, his voice carrying the authority of a man who'd earned every syllable through blood and fire. "Before I have security escort you out." Elena didn't move. Behind Sullivan, 4 other SEALs formed a loose semicircle. Marcus Hayes, nicknamed Hawk for his legendary sniper skills, shook his head with undisguised contempt. Nathaniel Torres, the explosives specialist, looked like he was trying not to laugh. James Crawford and Victor Sterling exchanged glances that said everything without words. "Who the hell does she think she is? I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," Elena said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried perfectly in the concrete space. Not aggressive, not defensive, simply certain. Sullivan felt something flicker in his gut. A warning. He'd learned to trust those warnings in Ramadi, in Fallujah, in a dozen hellholes where ignoring instinct meant coming home in a box. He ignored it anyway. "This is a restricted military facility," Sullivan said, stepping closer. "Not a goddamn tourist attraction. How'd you even get past the gate? I have authorization." "From who?" "Commander Robert Langley, Naval Intelligence." The name landed like a grenade. Sullivan's expression shifted just slightly, just for a moment before his mask slammed back into place. "Langley's retired." "Langley's dying," Elena corrected. "Cancer. 6 months, maybe less. But he still has enough pull to get me through that gate. And enough evidence to make what I'm about to say very interesting to you." Hayes stepped forward, hand drifting toward his sidearm. "Chief, this is bullshit. She's obviously—" "Shut up, Hawk." Sullivan's eyes never left Elena's face. He was reading her now. Really reading her. Looking for the tells, the nervous tics, the micro-expressions, the small betrayals that separated liars from truth-tellers. He found nothing, just ice, pure crystalline ice. "What do you want?" Sullivan asked. "I want to join your team." Torres actually laughed out loud, a sharp barking sound that echoed off the concrete walls. "Join our team! Lady, do you have any idea where you are? This isn't some— I know exactly where I am." Elena's voice cut through his mockery like a blade through silk. "I'm standing in the same shooting range where my father set a record in 2001. A record that nobody's touched in 23 years. A record of 57 seconds. Silence. The kind of silence that has weight. that has texture, that presses down on everyone in the room like a physical force. Sullivan's face had gone pale. "Your father," he repeated slowly. "Captain Michael Vasquez, United States Navy SEAL, call sign Phantom." The name hit the room like a thunderbolt. Hayes's hand dropped away from his sidearm. Torres stopped laughing. Crawford and Sterling went rigid, two statues carved from flesh and bone. And Sullivan looked like he'd just seen a ghost, because in a way he had. "Jesus Christ," he breathed. Elena reached for the M4A1 rifle slung across her back. The movement was slow, deliberate, giving the SEALs time to see she wasn't reaching for a different weapon. Sullivan's hand shot out and grabbed the rifle's barrel. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "Proving something." "Proving what?" Elena met his eyes, and for the first time, Sullivan saw something behind that frozen mask. Something that burned. "That my father didn't die the way you think he did. That someone in this room knows the truth. And that I'm going to find out who one way or another." The words hung in the air like smoke after a firefight. Sullivan's grip tightened on the rifle. His knuckles went white. His jaw clenched so hard Elena could hear his teeth grinding. "Your father," he said carefully, "died a hero in Afghanistan in 2017. Classified mission. End of story. That's what the official report says. That's what happened." "Then why," Elena said softly, "do I have footage of him surrendering to someone in American uniform right before that someone put a bullet in his head?" The silence that followed was absolute. Not the silence of shock, not the silence of confusion. The silence of guilt. Elena saw it flash across their faces just for a moment, just a flicker before the masks slammed back into place. But she'd been trained to read faces the way most people read books, and what she read in those 5 faces told her everything she needed to know. They knew something, maybe not all of them, maybe not everything, but at least one of these men, at least one, knew that her father's death wasn't what the official report claimed. Sullivan released the rifle. His hand was trembling slightly. He noticed, shoved it into his pocket. "That's impossible," he said. "There is no footage. Everything from that op was classified above top secret and destroyed. Everything except one helmet cam recording that somehow survived. A recording that shows my father hands up weapon on the ground being executed by someone wearing the same uniform as all of you. Bullshit. Is it?" Elena pulled out her phone, thumbed the screen, held it up. Grainy footage. Dark. Chaotic. Muzzle flashes in the distance. Men running, shouting, dying. And then a figure emerges from the chaos. Hands raised, weapon discarded on the ground, face clearly visible in the camera's night vision. Michael Vasquez. Phantom. Surrendering. Another figure approaches. American uniform. American gear. Face obscured by shadow. A single gunshot. Phantom drops. Elena watched the SEALs' faces as the footage played. Watched their reactions. Cataloged every twitch, every flinch, every involuntary response. Sullivan's jaw tightened. His breathing changed faster, shallower. Hayes went pale. His hand moved to his chest, pressing against his heart like he was trying to hold something in. Torres's eyes widened, then narrowed. His expression cycling through shock, confusion, and something that looked almost like fear. Crawford and Sterling exchanged another glance, but this one was different. This one carried weight. Meaning. They know Elena thought. At least one of them knows exactly what I'm talking about. "Where did you get that?" Sullivan's voice was barely above a whisper. Does it matter? It matters because that footage doesn't exist. It can't exist. I was there when they wiped the drives. I watched them destroy everything. Then someone lied to you. Sullivan's fist clenched. For a moment, just a moment, Elena thought he might actually hit her. She shifted her weight slightly, preparing to counter if he did. But he didn't. Instead, he laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It was the laugh of a man who'd just watched his entire understanding of reality crack down the middle. "You know what I think," he said. "I think you're running some kind of con. I think you've got a grudge against the Navy, or the SEALs, or God knows what else, and you're using your father's name to—" "My father trained me since I was 8 years old." Sullivan stopped. "He taught me to shoot, to fight, to move, to think like an operator." Elena's voice was steady, relentless. "He taught me footwork patterns that nobody else in the world knows because he invented them. He taught me how to read people, how to spot liars, how to survive." She paused. "And right now, Master Chief, I'm reading you. And what I'm reading is a man who knows exactly what that footage shows and is terrified of what happens if the truth comes out." Sullivan's face went from pale to red in the space of a heartbeat. Rage flooded his features, twisting them into something ugly. "You think you can walk in here and accuse— I'm not accusing you of anything. Not yet." "Then what the hell are you doing?" Elena smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "I'm offering you a chance to prove me wrong." The words hung in the air like a challenge, because that's exactly what they were. Torres stepped forward, unable to contain himself any longer. "Chief, we don't have to listen to this. She's obviously crazy. Phantom's daughter or not, we can have security." "What kind of chance?" Sullivan cut him off. His eyes locked on Elena's. "A test. You and 4 of your men. Sidearms only. Simunition rounds. First blood wins." Hayes snorted. "You want to go 1-on-5 against Navy SEALs, lady, I don't care who your daddy was." "If you drop me," Elena continued, ignoring him, "I leave, never come back. Forget about the footage. Forget about my father. Forget about everything." "And if you drop us," Sullivan asked quietly, "then you help me find out what really happened in Afghanistan. You help me identify the man who murdered my father. And you help me bring him to justice." Silence again. The SEALs exchanged glances. Elena could read the unspoken conversation passing between them. "She's insane. She can't be serious. No way in hell she beats 5 of us." Torres was the first to speak. "I say we do it. Teach her a lesson. 5 minutes from now, she'll be crying in the parking lot and we can all get back to work." Hayes nodded. "Agreed. Let her embarrass herself." Crawford and Sterling stayed quiet, but their expressions said enough. Sullivan studied Elena for a long moment. She could almost see the calculations happening behind his eyes. The risk assessment, the tactical analysis, and something else. Something that looked almost like recognition. "Your father," he said slowly, "used to do this thing when he was sizing up an opponent. He'd go completely still. No movement. No expression. Just watching. Like a snake waiting to strike." Elena said nothing. "You're doing it right now." Still nothing. Sullivan exhaled. Something shifted in his expression. Resignation, maybe. Or acceptance. "Fine," he said. "You want a test? You've got one." He turned to the others. "Gear up. Simunition rounds. Kill house scenario." Hayes grinned like a predator, scenting blood. "This is gonna be fun." Torres cracked his knuckles. 57 seconds, right? I'll give her 15 before she's crying for her mommy." Crawford moved toward the equipment locker without comment. Sterling followed. Only Sullivan remained, his eyes still fixed on Elena. "You understand what you're asking for?" he said quietly. We don't pull punches. We don't go easy. This isn't a game. I know exactly what this is. Do you? Because your father was the best I ever saw, the best anyone ever saw, and even he got killed by someone he trusted. Elena finished. I know. That's why I'm here. Sullivan's jaw tightened. For a moment she saw something flicker across his face. Pain, maybe. Or grief. He saved my life, Sullivan said. Twice. Ramadi 2007. I was trapped in a burning Humvee ammunition cooking off all around me. Ghost pulled me out. Burned his hands doing it. 3rd-degree burns. Medic wanted to medevac him. He refused. Said his team needed him. Elena's expression didn't change, but something deep inside her chest tightened. The second time was 3 months later. IED took out our convoy. I was bleeding out in a ditch. Your father dragged me 200 yards to cover while taking fire from 3 different positions. Saved my life. Again. Then helped me find out who murdered him. Sullivan closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed. You've got 57 seconds, he said. Same as your father's record. You clear all 5 of us in that time and I'll tell you everything I know. And if I do it faster... Sullivan almost smiled. Nobody does it faster, not even Phantom. Elena holstered her rifle. Her hand dropped to the Sig Sauer P226 on her thigh. We'll see. The kill house was a maze of walls and doorways and cover points designed to simulate urban combat in the most realistic way possible. 100 feet long, low light, multiple entry points, infinite variables. The range master called out the rules. Standard engagement scenario. Simunition rounds non-lethal, but they'd hurt like hell. First team to score 5 hits wins. Elena walked to the starting position. Her movements were economical. Efficient. No wasted motion. Sullivan noticed. Torres noticed. Everyone noticed. Because they'd only ever seen one person move like that before. Timer's set, the range master announced. 57 seconds. On your mark. Elena closed her eyes. In her mind, she wasn't standing in a Navy shooting range. She was 8 years old, standing in the Montana wilderness, her father's hands guiding her grip on a rifle that was almost bigger than she was. Breathe in. Breathe out. Find the space between heartbeats. That's where the shot lives. His voice echoed through the years, through the pain, through the 7 years of grief that had hardened into something else, something sharper, something deadlier. I'm coming for you, Dad. I'm going to find out who killed you, and I'm going to make them pay. The buzzer sounded. Elena moved. She wasn't running. She wasn't jogging. She was flowing, her body becoming something liquid, something that existed between moments rather than within them. The first seal came around a corner, hard and fast. Crawford. Combat medic. Good reflexes, solid training, predictable patterns. He saw her. He tried to acquire his target. He never got the chance. Elena was already behind him. She'd anticipated his angle, read his momentum, positioned herself exactly where she needed to be before his brain even registered the threat. 2 shots. Center mass. Double tap. Crawford looked down at the blue paint spreading across his chest. His expression was pure disbelief. What the? 4 seconds elapsed. Elena was already gone. Sullivan came next. The most experienced of the 5, 2 decades of combat had given him instincts that bordered on supernatural. He cut through a doorway with his weapon up, scanning for threats the way he'd done 10,000 times before. But Elena wasn't where she should have been. She was using footwork he'd only seen once before, a gliding sidestep that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Moving without moving. Striking without striking. Phantom's footwork. The footwork that Michael Vasquez had invented and never taught to anyone outside his family. Sullivan's eyes widened in recognition. Her weapon came up. 3 shots. 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. The Mozambique drill executed with textbook precision. Sullivan looked down at the paint marking his body armor. "Son of a bitch," he whispered. 12 seconds. Hayes tried to flank her from the left. He was the best shooter on the team, a sniper who could put a round through a keyhole at 1,000 yards. In the field, that skill made him legendary. In close quarters, it meant nothing. Speed mattered more than precision. Adaptation mattered more than skill. Elena actually rolled her body, tucking into a tight ball momentum, carrying her across the concrete floor, coming up in a shooting position before Hayes could even adjust his aim. 2 rounds caught him in the chest. He stumbled backward, more surprised than hurt, and crashed into a wall. 19 seconds. Torres and Sterling tried to coordinate, coming at her from both sides in a pincer movement that should have been impossible to counter. Should have been. Elena had already mapped the space, already calculated the angles, already identified the optimal position for a single defender against multiple attackers. She used a door frame as cover, drawing fire from Sterling on her right, while she engaged Torres on her left. The rhythm of her shooting was hypnotic. Breathe, aim, fire. Breathe, aim, fire. No hesitation. No wasted rounds. Torres took 3 hits before he could fire a single shot. 38 seconds. Sterling tried to charge, thinking he could close the distance, use his size advantage, overwhelm her with brute force. Elena sidestepped that same impossible gliding movement and put 3 rounds in his back as he stumbled past. The buzzer sounded. The rangemaster stared at his timer, then looked up at the observation window where a dozen instructors had gathered to watch. 53 seconds, he announced. New range record. Silence. The kind of silence that follows an earthquake. The kind that happens when everything you thought you understood about the world suddenly proves false. Sullivan stood slowly. Blue paint covered his chest. His legs felt weak. Around him, the other SEALs were doing the same, rising from positions of defeat, wiping simunition residue from their gear, processing what had just happened. And on every face, the same expression. Shock giving way to respect. "That footwork," Sullivan said quietly. "The way you moved, I've only seen one person move like that." Elena holstered her weapon. Her hands were steady. Not even a tremor. "Captain Michael Vasquez," she said. "Also known as Phantom. My father. He taught me everything." Sullivan walked toward her. His gait was different now, no longer aggressive, no longer dominant. The walk of a man approaching an equal. "Your father," he said slowly, "was the finest operator I ever knew. I thought there was nobody else in the world who could do what he did. I was wrong." Elena met his eyes. "You said you'd tell me everything you know." "I did." "Then start talking." Sullivan glanced at the others. Hayes was still rubbing his chest where the simunition rounds had hit. Torres looked like he'd just been hit by a truck. Crawford and Sterling stood apart, their expressions unreadable. "Not here," Sullivan said quietly. "My office, 30 minutes. "Why 30 minutes?" "Because I need to make some calls, find out how much trouble we're all about to be in." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Your father trusted me with his life," he said without looking back. "Multiple times. I never let him down." "Then don't start now." Sullivan nodded once, then walked out of the kill house. And Elena Vasquez Ghost's daughter finally allowed herself to breathe. The office was small, utilitarian military. American flag in the corner. Photographs on the walls, teams of operators in desert camouflage faces blurred for security purposes. One photograph wasn't blurred. Elena spotted it the moment she walked in. Her father, maybe 10 years younger, standing next to a man she recognized as Sullivan. Both of them grinning like they'd just conquered the world. Behind them, 5 other men she didn't recognize. And behind them, almost invisible in the shadows, one face that made her blood run cold. "That photo," Elena said quietly. "When was it taken?" Sullivan glanced at the wall. 2007, right after Ramadi, the op where your father saved my life. Who are the others? The team: Hayes, Torres, Crawford, Sterling. Walter Knox, weapons specialist, retired now. And Sullivan hesitated. And Colonel Raymond Bishop, Pentagon liaison, Defense Intelligence. Elena felt her heart skip. Raymond Bishop, one of the 7 names on Langley's list. Where is he now? Still Pentagon, still connected, still... Sullivan stopped himself. His expression changed. Still what? Still dangerous. Elena moved closer to the photo, studied Bishop's face, distinguished features. Silver hair, the kind of face that inspired trust, the kind of face that could hide anything. "My father found something," she said. "Before he died. Evidence of weapons technology being sold to hostile forces. Someone inside the military was running the operation. Codename Prometheus." Sullivan's face went pale. "Where did you hear that name?" "Commander Langley. He's been investigating for 7 years. Couldn't get anywhere, doors kept slamming shut, evidence kept disappearing. But he found enough to narrow it down." "Narrow it down to what?" 8 men were on Operation Sandstorm, the mission where my father died. 7 are still alive." Elena turned to face Sullivan directly. "One of them killed my father. One of them is Prometheus." When the silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. "And you think," Sullivan said slowly, "it's one of us, the team." "I think my father trusted someone he shouldn't have. I think that someone sold him out. And I think you know more than you're saying." Sullivan's jaw tightened. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. "I loved your father like a brother," he said. "He was the best of us, the best of all of us. When he died..." He stopped, turned away. His shoulders shook slightly. "When he died, part of me died with him. I spent months wondering if I could have done something different. If I'd been there, if I'd watched his back, if I'd..." "You weren't there?" Sullivan shook his head. "I was stateside. Training rotation. The op was supposed to be routine intelligence gathering in and out. When I got the call..." He trailed off. "Who was there? Hayes, Torres, Crawford, Sterling, Knox, Bishop." Sullivan turned back to face her. 6 men. Any one of them could have done it. All of them had opportunity. But not all of them had motive. No, not all of them. Elena felt the question forming on her lips, the question she'd been waiting 7 years to ask. "Who, Chief, who had motive to kill my father?" Sullivan was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Your father found something. Right before the mission. Financial records, transaction logs, proof that someone had been selling classified weapons technology to hostile forces for years. Billions of dollars. Hundreds of lives. Prometheus. He didn't have a name, just the code. But he was close. Too close." Sullivan's eyes met hers. 3 days before Operation Sandstorm, your father called me. Told me he was going to blow the whole thing wide open as soon as he got back. Told me he had evidence that would bring down half the Pentagon. And then he died. And then he died. And the evidence disappeared. And the official report said it was a combat casualty, heroic sacrifice, classified mission, end of story. Elena felt the anger rising in her chest. 7 years of grief transforming into something harder, something sharper. But you didn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. There's a difference. Sullivan's voice cracked slightly. Your father was the best operator I ever saw. The best anyone ever saw. The idea that he could be taken down by a bunch of insurgents with AK-47s, it never sat right with me. So why didn't you investigate? I tried. For about 6 months, I pulled every string I could find, requested access to the mission files, interviewed the survivors, tried to piece together what really happened. And Sullivan's face hardened. And I got a visit from Colonel Bishop, personally. He sat right where you're sitting now and told me very politely, very professionally, that if I kept asking questions, my career was over. My pension was gone. And my family. He paused. He didn't make specific threats. He didn't have to. The implication was clear enough. So you stopped. I stopped. Told myself I was protecting my family. Told myself there was nothing I could do anyway. Told myself your father would have understood. His voice broke on the last word. But he wouldn't have, would he? He would have kept digging, kept fighting. Even if it cost him everything. Elena thought of her father, of all the lessons he'd taught her, all the values he'd instilled. Never quit, never surrender, never stop fighting for what's right. No, she said quietly. He wouldn't have stopped. Sullivan nodded. Something had shifted in his expression, the guilt finally giving way to something else. Determination. Then neither will I. Not anymore. He stood up straighter. What do you need? Access, information. Someone who knows the players and the politics. Done. And I need you to trust me. Even when things get ugly. Even when it looks like we're going to lose. Sullivan extended his hand. Your father trusted me with his life. I never let him down. I'm not going to start now. Elena took his hand. His grip was firm, calloused, honest. Then let's find out who killed Phantom. Her phone buzzed as she walked out of Sullivan's office. Unknown number. She answered. Miss Vasquez. The voice was smooth, educated, cold. I've been wondering when you'd finally show up. Elena's blood ran cold. Who is this? Someone who knew your father quite well. Someone who's been watching you for a very long time. What do you want? To give you a warning, a friendly one. The voice paused. Stop digging. Go back to Montana. Forget about Prometheus. Forget about everything. And if I don't, then you'll end up exactly like your father, hands in the air, weapon on the ground, bullet in the head. The line went dead. Elena stared at her phone for a long moment. Then she smiled. Prometheus had just made his first mistake. He'd let her know she was getting close. The phone call changed everything. Elena stood in the parking lot, staring at the dead screen in her hand. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. 7 years of grief had taught her how to control fear, how to channel it into something useful. Prometheus knew she was coming. Good. Let him sweat. Sullivan found her 10 minutes later, his expression dark with concern. You look like you just saw a ghost. I just talked to one. Elena showed him the call log. Unknown number, male voice, educated, cold. He knew my name, knew about my father, knew I was here. Sullivan's jaw tightened. What did he say? Stop digging, go back to Montana, or end up like Phantom. Son of a bitch. Sullivan ran a hand through his graying hair. He's watching us. Has to be. Someone on base, someone with access, or someone with enough connections to have eyes everywhere. They both knew who that sounded like. Colonel Raymond Bishop. Sullivan pulled out his own phone. I'm calling the others. Hayes, Torres, Crawford, Sterling. We need to figure out who we can trust. You think one of them made that call? I think one of them knows who did. Elena grabbed his wrist. Wait. If Prometheus has people watching calling a meeting right now, tips our hand. He'll know we're organizing. He'll have time to prepare. Then what do you suggest? Elena thought of her father. Of all the lessons he'd taught her about hunting. About patience. About waiting for the perfect moment to strike. We don't call a meeting. We have conversations, one-on-one. Feel them out. See who's nervous, who's hiding something, who knows more than they're saying. Sullivan studied her face. You've done this before. My father taught me to hunt when I was 6 years old. The principle's the same. You don't chase the prey. You let the prey come to you. And if the prey has teeth, Elena smiled grimly, then you make sure yours are sharper. 3 hours later, Elena sat across from Marcus Hayes in a bar 15 miles from base. The kind of place where SEALs went to forget dim lights, cheap beer, and a bartender who knew better than to ask questions. Hayes hadn't wanted to meet. He'd resisted Sullivan's suggestion, made excuses about training schedules and family obligations, but Sullivan had pushed, and eventually Hayes had caved. Now he sat hunched over a whiskey, avoiding Elena's eyes. I don't know what you want me to tell you, he said. I already told the investigators everything back in 2017. Mission went sideways. We got ambushed. Your father didn't make it. End of story. That's not what the footage shows. Hayes flinched. Actually flinched like she'd slapped him. I don't know anything about any footage. You were his spotter. Sullivan told me. You and my father worked together for 3 years. You saw everything he saw, knew everything he knew. Hayes's grip tightened on his glass. Sullivan talks too much. Sullivan told me my father trusted you with his life. Multiple times. He said you were the best sniper team he'd ever seen. Something flickered across Hayes's face. Pain, maybe. Or guilt. Your father was the best I ever worked with, he said quietly. The best anyone ever worked with. When he died. He trailed off, took a long drink. When he died, what? When he died, I knew something was wrong. The official story didn't add up. The timelines were off. The positions didn't make sense. I tried to say something, but... He stopped. But what? Hayes looked around the bar, checking for watchers, for listeners, for threats. But someone told me to keep my mouth shut. Said if I started asking questions, I'd end up just like Phantom. Said my family would suffer. Elena felt her pulse quicken. Who told you that? Hayes shook his head. I can't. You don't understand. These people, whoever they are, they're not just connected. They're everywhere. Pentagon, Congress, intelligence agencies. They've got eyes and ears in places you can't imagine. I don't care about their connections. I care about my father. And I care about my wife, my kids, my life. Hayes's voice cracked. I'm sorry about what happened to Phantom. I really am. But I can't help you. I won't. He stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair. Wait. I'm done talking. Hayes threw a 20 on the table. Go back to Montana, Miss Vasquez. Forget about all this. It's the only way you survive. He walked out without looking back. Elena sat alone in the bar, processing what she'd just learned. Hayes was scared. Genuinely scared. Not of her, not of Sullivan, but of something else entirely. Someone had threatened him, threatened his family, forced him into silence. And whoever that someone was, they had enough power to make a Navy SEAL, one of the deadliest warriors on Earth, cower like a frightened child. Her phone buzzed. Text from Sullivan. Torres is ready to talk. Same bar, 1 hour. Elena ordered another drink and waited. Torres arrived exactly 60 minutes later, his massive frame filling the doorway like a wall of muscle. Unlike Hayes, he didn't look nervous. He looked angry. "I don't like being summoned," he said, dropping into the seat across from her, "especially by someone who humiliated me in front of my entire team. You lost a simunition drill. It happens. It doesn't happen to me." Torres leaned forward, his voice dropping to a growl. "I've been doing this for 15 years. 15 years of combat, 15 years of being the best at what I do. And you walk in off the street and drop all 5 of us in under a minute? 53 seconds, actually." Torres's eyes narrowed. "You think this is funny? I think my father is dead, and someone in your unit knows why. That's not funny. That's murder." The word hung between them like a blade. Torres was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed softer, more measured. "I liked your father. He was hard, but fair. Pushed us to be better. Held us to standards most men couldn't meet." He paused. "When he died, I cried. First time I'd cried since my mother's funeral. Then help me find out who killed him. I don't know who killed him. But you know something." Torres hesitated. The anger was fading from his face, replaced by something more complicated. "The night before the mission," he said slowly, "your father pulled me aside, told me he'd found something big, said he had proof that someone was selling classified weapons technology to hostile forces." Elena's heart stopped. "Did he say who?" "No, he was being careful. Said he didn't know how deep it went, how many people were involved. He was planning to wait until after the mission to blow the whistle." "But he never got the chance." "No, he never got the chance." Torres' voice was heavy with regret. "I've thought about that conversation every day for 7 years. Wondered if I should have done something, said something. Maybe if I had. Maybe if you had, you'd be dead too." Torres met her eyes. "Maybe. Or maybe your father would still be alive." They sat in silence for a moment. Elena could feel the pieces starting to come together, fragments of truth coalescing into something larger. "Who else knew?" she asked. "About what my father found?" "I don't know. He was keeping it close, but if he told me, he might have told others. Sullivan. Hayes. Maybe even—" He stopped abruptly. "Maybe even who?" Torres shook his head. "Forget it. Torres, I said forget it." His voice hardened. "Some doors, once you open them, you can't close again. And some names, once you speak them, put a target on your back. I already have a target on my back. Someone called me today. Threatened to kill me like they killed my father." Torres's expression changed. The anger was back, but different now, not directed at her, but at something else. Something darker. "They called you already. You sound surprised." "I'm not surprised they called. I'm surprised they're moving this fast." Torres stood up. "Listen to me carefully. You've poked a hornet's nest. The people behind this, whoever they are, they don't play games. They don't make threats they can't keep. I'm not afraid of them. You should be." Torres pulled out his wallet, threw a 50 on the table. "Your father wasn't afraid either. Look where it got him." He walked toward the door, then stopped. "One more thing. If you really want answers, stop talking to us. We're not the ones who know. The one who knows the one who was there when it happened, who saw everything. He's not on active duty anymore." "Who?" "Walter Knox, weapons specialist. Retired. Lives in Montana now." Torres paused. "About 5 miles from your cabin." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Knox. The one suspect who lived practically in her backyard. The one who'd been watching her for God knows how long. "Why are you telling me this?" Torres looked back at her, and for a moment she saw something in his eyes that might have been compassion. Because your father deserved better than what he got, and because some secrets are too heavy to carry alone. He walked out into the night. Elena sat alone again, her mind racing. Knox. The name kept echoing in her head. 5 miles from her cabin. Close enough to watch. Close enough to listen. Close enough to... Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Miss Vasquez, the same voice as before. Smooth. Educated. Cold. I see you've been busy. How are you watching me? That's not the question you should be asking. The question you should be asking is, why am I still letting you live? Elena's grip tightened on the phone. Maybe because you can't get to me. Maybe because you're not as powerful as you think. Laughter. Soft, dangerous. I got to your father. I can get to anyone. Then why call? Why warn me? If you're so powerful, just kill me and be done with it. Silence. When the voice spoke again, there was something different in it, interest maybe, or amusement. Because you're interesting, Miss Vasquez. Your father was a blunt instrument, all righteousness and no subtlety. But you're something else. Patient, strategic, willing to play the long game. You don't know anything about me. I know everything about you. I've been watching you for 7 years, ever since you inherited that cabin, ever since you started asking questions you shouldn't ask. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. 7 years. He'd been watching her for 7 years. What do you want? What I've always wanted. For you to understand that some battles can't be won. Some enemies can't be defeated. Some truths are better left buried. Like my father. Another pause. Longer this time. Your father was a good man, a patriot, but he made the mistake of thinking that the truth would set him free. It didn't. It killed him. And you killed him. I did what was necessary, what had to be done, for the greater good. Elena's hand was shaking now. Not with fear, with rage. There's no greater good that justifies murder. You'd be surprised what can be justified when national security is at stake, when billions of dollars and thousands of lives hang in the balance. The voice hardened. Your father discovered something he shouldn't have. Something that could have destabilized the entire defense industry. I couldn't let that happen. So you shot him. An unarmed man. A hero. I eliminated a threat, same as I'll eliminate you unless you're smarter than he was. I'm my father's daughter. That should tell you everything you need to know. Silence. Yes, the voice said finally. I suppose it does. Goodbye, Miss Vasquez. We'll speak again soon, assuming you're still alive. The line went dead. Elena stared at the phone in her hand. Her whole body was trembling, but her mind was crystal clear. Prometheus had just confirmed everything. He'd killed her father. He was watching her. And he was planning to kill her too. But he'd also made a mistake. He'd gotten arrogant. Started talking. Started explaining himself. And in doing so, he'd revealed something crucial. He knew about the defense industry connection. Knew about the weapons technology sales. Knew about the money. And there was only one person on Langley's list who had that level of access, that level of knowledge, that level of power. Colonel Raymond Bishop. Elena left the bar and called Sullivan. I know who Prometheus is. You're sure? I just got off the phone with him. He confirmed everything. Sullivan was quiet for a moment. Bishop. Jesus Christ. Sullivan's voice was shaking. Do you understand what this means? Bishop's not just some colonel. He's connected to everyone. Pentagon brass, congressional committees, intelligence directors. If we go after him without ironclad proof, then we get ironclad proof. How? Elena thought of Torres's words. Walter Knox, the one who was there, the one who saw everything. Knox, she said. Torres told me he knows the truth. He's been living 5 miles from my cabin for the past 3 years. Knox is dangerous. If he's been watching you all this time, then he's either working for Bishop or hiding from him. Either way, he's got answers. And if he's working for Bishop, if this whole thing is a trap... Elena thought of her father, of the lessons he'd taught her, of the risks he'd taken. Then I spring the trap, and I deal with whatever comes next. Sullivan was quiet for a long moment. Your father would be proud of you, he said finally. Stupid as hell, but proud. Thanks, I think. When are you going after Knox? Tomorrow. I'm flying back to Montana tonight. I'm coming with you. No, you stay here. Keep eyes on Hayes, Torres, Crawford, Sterling. If Bishop knows I'm onto him, he might try to clean house, eliminate anyone who could testify against him. And if Knox kills you, then you finish what I started. Sullivan exhaled heavily. You're really your father's daughter, aren't you? I'm starting to think that's both a blessing and a curse. It's definitely both. Sullivan paused. Be careful, Elena. These people, Bishop, whoever else is involved, they've been doing this for a long time. They know how to make people disappear. So did my father. Look how that turned out. That's exactly my point. Elena ended the call and headed for the airport. Montana was waiting, and so was Walter Knox. The flight took 4 hours. Elena spent most of it going over Langley's files again, looking for anything she might have missed. Financial records, transaction logs, communication intercepts. The trail always led back to the same place, Triton Defense Systems, a private military contractor with billions in government contracts and connections to every major weapons program in the country. And the man who'd signed off on their biggest deals, Colonel Raymond Bishop. The pieces were falling into place. Bishop had been selling classified technology for years, maybe decades, making himself rich while American soldiers died fighting enemies armed with weapons he'd sold them. Her father had found out, had gathered evidence, was planning to expose the whole thing. So Bishop had him killed. Made it look like a combat casualty, buried the evidence, threatened anyone who asked questions. For 7 years he'd gotten away with it. Not anymore. Elena landed in Billings at 2 a.m, rented a car, started driving toward her cabin in the Bitterroot Mountains. The roads were empty, dark. The kind of darkness that only exists far from cities, far from civilization, far from anything that could help if something went wrong. She was 40 miles from home when she saw the headlights in her rearview mirror. 1 car, then 2, then 3, following her. Elena pressed the accelerator. The rental car wasn't fast, but it was steady. The headlights fell back slightly, then matched her speed. They weren't trying to catch her. They were just following, watching, waiting. Her phone rang. Unknown number. You should have listened to me, Miss Vasquez. Elena's blood went cold. How did you know I was coming? I told you. I know everything. I see everything. Bishop's voice was calm, almost bored. Did you really think you could fly across the country without me knowing, what do you want? I want you to understand that this is over. You've lost. There's nowhere you can run, nowhere you can hide, no one who can protect you. I'm not running. I'm hunting. You're prey, Miss Vasquez. You've always been prey, just like your father. The headlights behind her grew closer. She could make out the vehicles now, black SUVs, government plates. Professional. Is this supposed to scare me? It should. Those men behind you, they're not amateurs. They're not going to give you a chance to surrender. They're going to run you off the road, drag you into the woods, and make you disappear. Then why are you telling me? Why give me a warning? Silence. When Bishop spoke again, his voice had changed softer, almost regretful. Because I remember your father. I remember the man he was before he became a problem. And some small part of me wishes this could have ended differently. It still can. Call off your dogs. Turn yourself in. Face justice. Bishop laughed. Justice. You sound just like him. He believed in justice too, right up until the moment I put a bullet in his head. Elena's hands tightened on the wheel. I'm not my father. No, you're worse. You're more dangerous, more persistent, more willing to sacrifice everything for a cause. That's why you have to die. Come and get me then. I intend to. Goodbye, Miss Vasquez. The line went dead. The SUVs behind her accelerated, closing the gap. 40 yards. 30. 20. Elena had maybe 60 seconds before they reached her. She thought of her father, of the lessons he'd taught her, of the one rule he'd drilled into her head since she was old enough to hold a gun. When you're outnumbered and outgunned, don't fight fair. Fight smart. Use the terrain. Use their expectations against them. Make them think they've won, then strike when they're not expecting it. The road ahead curved sharply, a bridge over a deep ravine, and beyond that, Knox's property, 5 miles from her cabin. Elena made a decision. She didn't slow for the curve. Instead, she accelerated, pushing the rental car to its limits, feeling the tires skid on the gravel shoulder. The SUVs followed confident they had her boxed in. They didn't see the dirt road branching off to the right, hidden by trees. Invisible, unless you knew it was there. Elena knew. She'd driven this road 100 times as a child. Her father had shown it to her, told her it was an escape route. A backup plan. Always have a backup plan, Lily. Always. She wrenched the wheel to the right. The car fishtailed, nearly went over, then caught traction and shot down the dirt road. Behind her, the SUVs tried to follow, but they were too fast, too heavy. The first one missed the turn entirely, careened through the guardrail, disappeared into the ravine. The second managed to brake in time, but ended up sideways across the main road, blocking the third. Elena was gone before they could recover. She drove for 10 minutes without headlights, navigating by memory and moonlight. Finally, she reached a cabin smaller than hers, older, more weathered. Walter Knox's place. She killed the engine, drew her Glock, stepped out into the darkness. The cabin was dark, silent. No lights, no movement. Elena approached carefully, using the trees for cover. Every sense was on high alert, watching for threats, listening for footsteps, smelling for gun oil or cigarette smoke. Nothing. She reached the front porch. The door was slightly ajar. That was wrong. Knox was a weapons specialist, a trained operative. He would never leave his door unsecured. Unless he wanted her to come in, unless it was a trap. Elena pushed the door open with her foot staying to the side, weapon ready. I've been expecting you, a voice said from the darkness. Your father used to approach the same way. Careful, patient, always assuming the worst. Elena stepped inside. Her eyes adjusted slowly to the darkness. A man sat in a chair in the corner. Older, maybe 60. Gray beard, hard eyes. A shotgun rested across his lap. Not aimed at her, but ready. Walter Knox, in the flesh. Knox nodded toward a chair across from him. Sit down, Miss Vasquez. We have a lot to talk about. and not much time to do it. Elena didn't sit. She kept her weapon trained on Knox's chest, her back against the wall, her eyes scanning for secondary threats. How do you know who I am? Knox smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. I've been watching you for 3 years, Miss Vasquez, ever since you moved into your father's cabin. Saw you running every morning. Saw you shooting at those targets across the valley. Saw you practicing the same drills your father taught you. Why? Because I was waiting to see if you'd figure it out, waiting to see if you had the guts to come after the truth. Elena's finger tightened on the trigger. You were on the mission where my father died. I was. Did you kill him? Knox's expression didn't change. No. Then who did? That's the question, isn't it? Knox shifted slightly in his chair. The shotgun stayed across his lap. The question your father asked right before they put a bullet in his brain. Elena felt her heart hammering against her ribs. You saw it happen. I saw everything. I was 50 yards away when Bishop gave the order. Watched your father put down his weapon. Watched him raise his hands. Watched him try to negotiate. Bishop gave the order, but he didn't pull the trigger himself. He's too smart for that, too careful. Then who? Knox was quiet for a long moment. His eyes met hers, and she saw something there she hadn't expected. Pain. His name was Victor Sterling, communications specialist, one of the 8 men on that mission. Elena's blood turned to ice. Sterling. The quiet one. The one who'd barely spoken during the simunition drill. The one who'd exchanged that loaded glance with Crawford. Sterling killed my father. Sterling was Bishop's man from the beginning. Recruited him years ago. Paid him well. Promised him protection, advancement, everything a young operator could want. Knox shook his head slowly. Your father trusted him. They all trusted him. That's what made it work. Why would Sterling do it? Money, power, fear. Knox's voice was heavy with contempt. Pick one. Pick all 3. Bishop's operation was worth billions, and your father was about to burn it all down. Elena's mind was racing. Sterling. Not Hayes, not Torres, not any of the others she'd suspected. Sterling. Where is he now? Still at Coronado, still working with the teams, still pretending to be a patriot while he cashes Bishop's checks. And Bishop, Pentagon, same office, same power, same protection. Knox leaned forward slightly. You're not the first person to try to take him down, Miss Vasquez. I tried. Commander Langley tried. A dozen others tried over the years. They're all dead or silenced. I'm not them. No, you're not. Knox studied her face. You're something else. Something your father was hoping for, I think. Something he was preparing. What do you mean? Did you ever wonder why he trained you so hard? Why he taught you skills no civilian should know? Why he made you practice combat drills and tactical shooting and surveillance detection when you were just a kid? Elena had wondered. For years, she'd wondered. He said it was for self-defense. It was for this. For exactly this moment. Knox stood slowly, keeping his hands visible. Your father knew he was going to die. He knew Bishop would come for him eventually. So he built a backup plan. A fail-safe. Me. You. Knox walked to a desk in the corner, opened a drawer, pulled out a thick manila envelope. He gave me this the night before the mission. Told me to hold on to it. Told me that if anything happened to him, I should wait. Wait until his daughter was ready. Wait until she came looking for answers. He held out the envelope. Elena took it with her free hand, keeping her weapon trained on Knox. Inside were documents, photographs, financial records, and a handwritten letter, her father's handwriting. Her hands started shaking. "Read it later," Knox said quietly. "When you're safe, when you have time to process." "I don't have time. Bishop's men are out there. They ran me off the road 30 minutes ago." Knox's expression sharpened. "How many?" "3 vehicles. I took out 1. The other 2 are probably regrouping." "Then we need to move. Now." Knox grabbed the shotgun, moved toward a back door. "There's a truck behind the cabin. 4-wheel drive. Can handle the mountain roads." "Where are we going?" "Somewhere Bishop can't reach. Somewhere we can plan our next move." Elena hesitated. She'd come here expecting answers. What she'd found was something more complicated. "Why should I trust you?" "You've been watching me for 3 years. You could be working for Bishop." Knox stopped, turned to face her. "Your father saved my life, twice, in Ramadi and again in Fallujah. I owe him a debt I can never repay." His voice cracked slightly. "I watched him die, Miss Vasquez. Watched Sterling put that bullet in his head, and I've been living with that guilt every day since." "Then why didn't you come forward? Why didn't you tell someone?" "Because Bishop owns everyone. Every investigator, every prosecutor, every official who might have cared. He would have buried me just like he buried the truth." "So you hid." "I survived. There's a difference." Knox's eyes met hers. "But I also prepared, gathered evidence, built a case. Everything in that envelope, it's enough to bring Bishop down. Enough to prove what he did, what Sterling did, what they've all been doing for 20 years. Why didn't you use it yourself?" "Because I'm a weapons specialist, not an intelligence operative. I know how to build bombs, not how to navigate Washington politics." He gestured toward her. "But you're your father's daughter. You have his skills, his training, his connections, and now you have his evidence." Elena looked down at the envelope in her hands. Her father's last gift. His final weapon. "We need to go," Knox said urgently. "Those men you evaded, they'll regroup. Call for reinforcements. Bishop will throw everything he has at us." Elena nodded, made a decision. "Lead the way." They moved through the back door across the darkened property to an old Ford pickup parked behind a storage shed. Knox took the driver's seat. Elena kept her weapon ready, watching for threats. The engine coughed to life. Knox pulled onto a barely visible trail that wound up into the mountains. "There's a safe house about 40 miles from here," he said. "Old mining cabin. No roads, no power, no way for Bishop's people to track us. We can plan our next move there." "What is our next move?" "We go after Sterling first. He's the weak link. Bishop's careful, disciplined, but Sterling is nervous, paranoid. If we can get to him, apply pressure, he'll crack. And if he doesn't, then we take the evidence directly to the FBI. There's an agent, Marcus Drake, who's been building a case against Bishop for years. He's clean. One of the few." Elena remembered that name. Sullivan had mentioned it. "How do we know he won't be compromised?" "We don't. But at this point, we're out of options." Knox glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Unless you have a better idea." Elena was quiet for a moment, thinking, planning. "We don't go after Sterling alone," she said finally. "We coordinate with Sullivan, hit them from multiple angles, make it impossible for Bishop to cover all his bases." "Sullivan, Master Chief Derek Sullivan. He was on the mission with my father. He's been helping me investigate." Knox's expression darkened. "Sullivan's a good man, but he's also predictable. If Bishop suspects he's involved, he'll be watching him, using him to track your movements. Then we use that. Feed Bishop false information through Sullivan. Make him think we're going one direction while we go another." Knox nodded slowly. "That could work. Your father used similar tactics in Mosul. Misdirection? Deception. He taught me well. They drove in silence for several miles. The road grew rougher, steeper. The darkness was absolute now, the moon hidden behind thick clouds. Elena's phone buzzed. Text from Sullivan. Bishop knows you're in Montana. Be careful. He's sending more men. She typed back, I know. Found Knox. He has evidence. Father left it for me. Sullivan's response came immediately. Jesus. What kind of evidence? Everything. Financial records, testimony, letter from my father. Enough to bring Bishop down. A long pause. Then, where are you going? Elena hesitated. Knox's warning echoed in her mind. If Bishop was watching Sullivan, any information she shared would go straight to the enemy. Can't say. We'll contact when safe. Don't trust anyone. Copy. Be safe, Elena. Your father would want you alive. She put the phone away. Smart, Knox said, having watched her exchange. The less Sullivan knows, the safer we both are. I hate lying to him. You're not lying. You're protecting him. There's a difference. 20 minutes later, the truck crested a ridge and descended into a narrow valley. Knox killed the headlights, navigating by memory alone. Almost there, he said. Another mile. Elena's instincts were screaming. Something was wrong. She could feel it, that same sixth sense her father had taught her to trust. Stop the truck. Knox glanced at her. What? Stop. Now. He braked. The truck slid to a halt on the gravel road. Silence. Darkness. Nothing moving. Then Elena saw it. A glint of light in the trees ahead. Brief, almost invisible, but unmistakable. We're not alone. Knox's face went pale. That's not possible. No one knows about this place. Someone does. Elena's mind was racing. Bishop's men. How could they have gotten here ahead of them? Unless Knox had led her into a trap. She raised her weapon, aimed it at Knox's head. Who did you call? What I didn't call anyone. That's a lie. Someone's up there, waiting for us. And the only person who knew we were coming here is you. Knox's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Listen to me. I didn't betray you. I would never. Then explain how they found us. I can't. I don't know. Knox's voice was desperate. Maybe they tracked your phone. Maybe they had a team already in position. Maybe gunfire erupted from the trees. The windshield exploded. Glass showered everywhere. Elena dove out of the passenger side, hitting the ground hard, rolling behind the truck's rear wheel. Knox wasn't so lucky. She heard him grunt, saw him slump forward against the wheel. Blood spreading across his chest. Knox! Run! He gasped. Get out of here! The envelope, more gunfire. Bullets punched through the truck's body, inches from Elena's head. She grabbed the envelope from where it had fallen, shoved it inside her jacket. Then she ran. Into the darkness. Into the trees. Into the unknown. Behind her, she heard voices. Men calling to each other. Organizing pursuit. At least 5. Maybe more. Elena ran harder. Her father's training took over. Move fast but quiet. Use the terrain. Stay low. Never run in a straight line. She'd practiced this 1,000 times in these mountains. Practiced until it was second nature. Practiced until she could disappear into the forest like smoke. The men behind her were good. Professional. But they didn't know these woods like she did. She gained ground. 50 yards, 100, 200. The voices faded. Elena kept moving until she reached a rocky outcropping overlooking the valley. From here she could see the truck, a dark shape against the slightly lighter ground. No movement around it. Knox was dead. She was sure of it now. Another ally gone. Another life taken by Bishop's machine. But she still had the envelope. Still had her father's evidence. And she still had her rage. Elena pulled out her phone. No signal. She was too deep in the mountains, too far from any cell tower. She would have to move. Find higher ground. Reach civilization. But first, she needed to read what her father had left her. She found a crevice in the rocks, sheltered from the wind, and hidden from view. Pulled out the envelope, opened it. The letter was on top. 2 pages, handwritten, dated March 19, 2017. 3 days before his death. My dearest Lily, if you're reading this, then I'm dead, and you've finally started asking the questions I knew you'd ask someday. I want you to know that everything I did, the training, the drills, the endless practice was for this moment. I knew I was going to die. Knew it for months before the end. Bishop's net was closing and there was no way out. But I could prepare you. I could give you the skills to finish what I started. And I could leave you the weapons you'd need to bring him down. In this envelope, you'll find everything. Financial records showing 20 years of weapons sales to hostile forces. Communication intercepts proving Bishop's involvement. Testimony from sources who are already dead or disappeared. But the most important weapon isn't in this envelope, Lily. It's you. You're stronger than I ever was. Smarter. More patient. I saw it when you were just a chit, that thing inside you that refuses to quit, refuses to accept injustice, refuses to look away from hard truths. Bishop will try to kill you. He'll try to silence you the same way he silenced me. But I believe in you, Lily. I believe you'll find a way to win. There's one more thing you need to know. Something I never told you when I was alive. The night I died, I had a chance to escape. Could have gotten out, gone underground, disappeared. But I didn't. I stayed because I knew that if I ran, Bishop would come after you instead. Would use you to get to me. Would hurt you to make me suffer. So I made a choice. My life for yours. It wasn't even a hard decision. I love you, Lily. I've loved you since the moment you were born, and I'll love you forever even from wherever I end up after this. Finish what I started. Make them pay. But don't lose yourself in the process. Don't become the thing you're fighting against. Your father. Michael Elena's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the letter. Tears streamed down her face, freezing in the mountain cold. Her father had known. Had chosen to die so she could live. And now she had to honor that sacrifice. She read through the rest of the documents. Financial records showing $2.8 billion in illegal weapons sales over 2 decades. Bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Singapore. Names and dates and transaction codes that connected everything back to Bishop. And photographs. Surveillance photos of Bishop meeting with foreign agents. Of Sterling receiving briefcases full of cash. Of weapons being loaded onto unmarked planes. Irrefutable evidence. Enough to destroy Bishop's entire network. Elena tucked everything back into the envelope, secured it inside her jacket. Then she started climbing toward higher ground. She needed to get a phone signal. Needed to contact Sullivan. Needed to figure out her next move. But as she climbed, one thought kept echoing in her mind. Sterling killed my father. Sterling pulled the trigger. Sterling was still at Coronado. Still walking around free. Still pretending to be a hero. That was about to change. It took her 3 hours to find a signal. By then, the sun was starting to rise, painting the peaks gold and pink. She called Sullivan. Elena, Jesus Christ, I've been trying to reach you for hours. What happened? Knox is dead. Bishop's men were waiting for us. Someone tipped them off. Silence. Then, God damn it, are you okay? I'm fine. I have the evidence. Everything we need. Where are you? Mountains. About 30 miles from my cabin. I need extraction. I can be there in— No. Elena cut him off. Not you. If Bishop's watching you, you'll lead them straight to me. Then who? Torres. He seemed genuine when we talked. And he's not on Bishop's radar the way you are. Sullivan was quiet for a moment. Torres is solid. But are you sure you can trust him? I'm not sure I can trust anyone. But I don't have a choice. Okay, I'll contact him. Send him your coordinates. One more thing. Elena's voice hardened. Sterling. He's the one who killed my father. Knox told me before he died. Sullivan's breath caught. Sterling Victor. Sterling. Bishop's man. Has been for years. Jesus. He's been here the whole time, right under our noses. I know. And when this is over, I'm going to make him pay. Elena, don't. I'm not going to do anything stupid, but I'm also not going to let him walk away from this. He murdered my father in cold blood. There has to be a reckoning. Sullivan was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was heavy. Your father used to say the same thing. Said there had to be justice no matter the cost. And he was right. He was also dead. I don't want the same for you. Elena looked out at the mountains, her father's mountains, the place where he'd taught her everything she knew. I'm not going to die, she said. Not until I finish this. Promise me. I promise. She ended the call and waited. Torres arrived 4 hours later, driving a beat-up Jeep that looked like it had seen better decades. He was alone, just as she'd requested. You look like hell, he said, as she climbed into the passenger seat. I feel worse. Knox. Dead. Ambush at his safe house. Torres's jaw tightened. Bishop's cleaning up loose ends. He's trying. But he missed one. Elena patted the envelope inside her jacket. I've got everything Torres. Financial records, testimony photographs. Enough to bring down Bishop Sterling and everyone else involved. Sterling. Torres looked genuinely shocked. Victor Sterling. He's the one who pulled the trigger. Knox saw it happen. Torres was quiet for a long moment, processing. His knuckles went white on the steering wheel. I worked with Sterling for 8 years, trusted him with my life. His voice was rough with betrayal. And the whole time he was Bishop's assassin. Yeah. Son of a bitch. Torres slammed his palm against the steering wheel. I'm going to kill him myself. Get in line. They drove in silence for several miles. Finally, Torres spoke again. What's the plan? We go to the FBI. Agent Marcus Drake. Sullivan says he's been building a case against Bishop for years. Drake's solid? I've worked with him before. Good. Because we're going to need all the help we can get. Torres glanced at her. You know this isn't going to be easy. Bishop has connections everywhere. Even if the FBI takes the case, there's no guarantee. I don't need guarantees. I need justice. Justice or revenge. Elena met his eyes. Is there a difference? Torres was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. Your father would have said the same thing. My father's dead. That's why we're here. They drove toward Phoenix, toward the FBI field office, toward the final confrontation. Elena didn't know if she would survive what came next. Didn't know if she would ever see these mountains again, ever stand at her father's cabin, ever feel the Montana wind on her face. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Bishop was going to pay for what he'd done. Sterling was going to pay. And her father's sacrifice was not going to be in vain. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. Miss Vasquez. Bishop's voice was calm, almost amused. I see you survived my little welcome party. Impressive. Knox didn't. Collateral damage. Regrettable, but necessary. Just like my father. Your father was a threat. You're becoming one too. Bishop paused. But it's not too late. We can still make a deal. What kind of deal? You have evidence. I have resources. We could come to an arrangement. Elena laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. You murdered my father, and you think I want to make a deal with you. I think you want to survive. I think you want to protect the people you care about. Sullivan, Torres, everyone who's helped you. Is that a threat? It's a reality. I have people everywhere, Miss Vasquez. In every agency, every institution, every organization that matters. If I want someone dead, they die. If I want someone disappeared, they disappear. Then why am I still alive? Silence. When Bishop spoke again, there was something different in his voice, something that almost sounded like respect. Because you're extraordinary. Your father was good, but you're better. And I find myself curious. Curious about what? About what you might become, with the right guidance, the right resources. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. You're trying to recruit me. I'm offering you an opportunity. Join me and everything changes. The evidence disappears. Your friends stay safe, and you get access to power beyond anything you've ever imagined. And if I refuse, then everyone you love dies, starting with Sullivan. Elena closed her eyes, thought of her father, of the letter he'd written, of the choice he'd made. My life for yours. Here's my counteroffer, she said quietly. Surrender now. Turn yourself in, and I'll make sure the FBI takes you alive. Bishop laughed. You're bluffing. Am I? Because in about 6 hours, I'm going to be sitting in Marcus Drake's office handing over 20 years of evidence, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Silence. You're making a mistake, Miss Vasquez. No, you made the mistake. When you killed my father. She ended the call. Torres was staring at her. That was either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. Elena looked out at the road ahead. How far to Phoenix? 4 hours. Then drive faster. Torres pressed the accelerator. The jeep surged forward, and Elena Vasquez began the final leg of her journey toward justice, toward revenge, toward the moment she'd been waiting for since she was 18 years old. The moment she would make Colonel Raymond Bishop pay for everything. The FBI field office in Phoenix was a fortress of glass and steel, but Elena knew that fortresses could be breached from within. Bishop had proven that for 20 years. Torres pulled into the parking garage, killed the engine, and turned to face her. Last chance to change your mind. Not happening. Didn't think so. He pulled out his phone. Drake's expecting us. 3rd floor, room 317. They walked through security, without incident. Elena kept the envelope pressed against her chest, hyper-aware of every face, every movement, every potential threat. Bishop had people everywhere. The FBI was no exception. Agent Marcus Drake met them at the elevator. Mid-50s graying temples, eyes that had seen too many broken promises and failed investigations. He shook Elena's hand with a grip that was firm but tired. Miss Vasquez, I've heard a lot about you. From who? Commander Langley, before he died. Drake's expression softened slightly. He believed in you. Said you were the key to everything. Did he tell you about Bishop? He told me enough, but not everything. Drake gestured toward his office. Why don't you fill in the blanks? They sat in a cramped room cluttered with files and coffee cups and the accumulated debris of a career spent fighting battles that couldn't be won. Drake closed the door, activated a white noise generator, and leaned forward. Start from the beginning. Elena told him everything. The shooting range, Sullivan, Hayes, Knox, the ambush in Montana, her father's letter, the 20 years of evidence sitting inside the envelope on her lap. Drake listened without interrupting. His expression grew darker with each revelation. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment. You understand what you're asking me to do, he said finally. Bishop isn't just some corrupt colonel. He's connected to senators, generals, intelligence directors. Going after him means going to war with half of Washington. I understand. And you're willing to accept the consequences. The fallout. Elena thought of her father, of the choice he'd made, of the letter he'd left behind. My father died to expose Bishop. I'm not going to let that sacrifice be meaningless. Drake studied her face for a long moment. Then he reached out and took the envelope. Let's see what you've got. He spent the next 2 hours going through the documents, photographs, financial records, transaction logs, the entire architecture of Bishop's treason laid bare in black and white. When he finished, his hands were shaking. Jesus Christ, he breathed. I've been chasing Bishop for 18 months. Never got close to anything like this. Is it enough? It's enough to destroy him. Enough to bring down his entire network. Drake looked up at her. Where did your father get all this? I don't know, but he spent months gathering it, maybe years. He was building a case. A real case. Drake shook his head slowly. And then they killed him before he could use it. They tried to bury the truth. They failed. Drake stood paced to the window, stared out at the Phoenix skyline. There's a problem, he said quietly. A big one. Elena felt her stomach clench. What? Bishop knows you're here. Has to. He's got sources everywhere, including inside this building. Drake turned to face her. The moment I start making arrests, he'll know. He'll run. Disappear. And we'll never find him. Then don't let him run. It's not that simple. I can't just make it that simple. Elena's voice was hard. My father gave his life for this. Knox gave his life for this. Langley gave his life for this. I'm not going to let Bishop walk away because of bureaucratic complications. Drake stared at her. Something shifted in his expression. Resignation giving way to determination. You're right, he said. You're absolutely right. He grabbed his phone. I'm calling in every favor I've got. We move tonight. Tonight? Before Bishop has time to react. Before his sources can warn him. Drake started dialing. We hit him at his home. Arrest him personally. Same with Sterling. Sterling, you said he's the one who pulled the trigger. He's priority one. Elena felt a cold satisfaction spreading through her chest. I want to be there, when you arrest him. Drake hesitated. That's not standard procedure. I don't care about procedure. He murdered my father. I want to look him in the eye when you take him down. Drake studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded. Fine, but you stay back. Let my people handle the takedown. And if anything goes wrong, it won't. It better not, because if Bishop gets even a hint that we're coming, he'll burn everything. Evidence witnesses everything. Elena's phone buzzed. Text from Sullivan. Something's wrong. Sterling just left base in a hurry, headed toward the airport. Her blood ran cold. Sterling's running. Drake's head snapped toward her. What? Sullivan just texted. Sterling left Coronado. He's heading for the airport. Drake grabbed his phone. I need a unit at San Diego International. Now. Target is Victor Sterling, Navy SEAL. Consider him armed and extremely dangerous. He listened for a moment. His face went pale. What do you mean, he's already through security? Elena didn't wait to hear the rest. She was already running. Torres caught up with her in the parking garage. What are you doing? Sterling's getting away. If he reaches that plane, then he's gone. I know. Torres pulled out his keys. San Diego's 2 hours from here. We'll never make it. Then we find another way. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Bishop. Miss Vasquez, I see you've caused quite a stir. Your boy Sterling is running. Guess he's not as loyal as you thought. Bishop laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Sterling's doing exactly what I told him to do, creating a distraction while I clean up the real problem. Elena felt ice form in her stomach. What are you talking about? Sullivan, your friend at Coronado. Bishop's voice was calm, almost conversational. He's been very helpful, actually. Unwittingly, of course. Every message you sent him, every call you made, it all came straight to me. You're lying. Check your phone. See if Sullivan responds. Elena's hands were shaking as she dialed Sullivan's number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Voicemail. She tried again. Same result. Sullivan is currently being detained by some associates of mine, Bishop said, along with Hayes and Crawford. They're all very comfortable, I assure you. For now. If you hurt them, I don't want to hurt them, Miss Vasquez. I want to make a deal. I already told you, no deals. That was before I had leverage. Bishop's voice hardened. Here's how this works. You have evidence that could destroy me. I have 3 men who trusted you, who helped you, who are now going to die unless you cooperate. What do you want? Meet me. Tonight. Alone. Bring the evidence. All of it. And if I do, then your friends live. And we have a real conversation about the future. And if I don't, then I start sending you body parts, beginning with Sullivan. Elena closed her eyes. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Don't become the thing you're fighting against. But her father was dead. And Sullivan, Hayes, Crawford, they were still alive. For now. Where? Arlington National Cemetery. Your father's grave. Midnight. The cruelty of it took her breath away. He wanted to kill her in the same place he'd buried her father. Wanted to add her body to the count. I'll be there. Alone, Miss Vasquez. If I see anyone else, anyone at all, your friends die immediately. The line went dead. Torres was staring at her. You can't be serious. He has Sullivan, Hayes, Crawford. Then we call the FBI. Let them handle. There's no time. Bishop's got sources inside every agency. The moment we involve anyone else, he'll know. He'll kill them. And if you go alone, he'll kill you. Maybe. Elena's jaw set. But maybe not. Maybe I can get close enough to do something. Create an opportunity. That's suicide. It's the only play I have. Torres grabbed her arm. Listen to me. Your father trained you. Trained you to think tactically, to see angles, to find solutions. There has to be another way. Elena thought. Really thought. Running through scenarios in her head. Calculating options. Drake, she said suddenly. Bishop's focused on me. He doesn't know Drake is already moving on the evidence. So while I'm meeting Bishop at Arlington, Drake arrests Sterling at the airport, uses him to flip on Bishop, builds a case that can't be buried. That still leaves you walking into a trap. I know, but if I can keep Bishop occupied long enough, give Drake time to work. You're the distraction. I'm the decoy. Elena met Torres's eyes. Same thing my father was. When he died, he knew he was buying time, protecting something bigger than himself. Torres was quiet for a long moment. Your father was a hero, he said finally, but he was also an idiot, and so are you. probably. I'm coming with you. No, Bishop said alone. Bishop can go to hell. Torres's voice was hard. I'm not letting you walk into that cemetery by yourself. We go in together, or we don't go at all. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to protect him the way her father had tried to protect her. But she also knew she couldn't do this alone. Fine, but you stay hidden. Overwatch position. Don't engage unless I give the signal. What's the signal? If I start shooting you, start shooting. Torres almost smiled. I can work with that. They flew to Washington on a red-eye landing at Dulles just before midnight. Drake had arranged for weapons and equipment to be waiting a professional courtesy that skirted about 15 different regulations. Elena armed herself with care. Glock 19 in a thigh holster. Backup piece on her ankle. Knife strapped to her forearm. Body armor under her jacket. It wouldn't be enough if Bishop brought an army, but it might be enough to survive long enough for Plan B to work. Torres set up half a mile from Arlington's main gate on a rooftop with clear sightlines to Section 60. He had a rifle night vision and strict instructions not to move unless everything went to hell. Elena walked alone through the gates at 11:58 p.m. The cemetery was silent. Thousands of white headstones stretched into the darkness like an army of ghosts. Her father's ghost was among them. She found his grave without difficulty. Captain Michael Vasquez, United States Navy SEAL, 1975 to 2017. Valor and honor, a lie carved in stone. You came. Bishop's voice came from behind her. Elena turned slowly, hands visible, heart pounding. He stood 20 feet away, flanked by 4 men in tactical gear. Sterling wasn't among them, still running, still trying to escape. Bishop himself was exactly as the photographs had shown. Distinguished, silver-haired, the kind of face that inspired trust, the face of a murderer. Where are they? Elena asked. Sullivan, Hayes, Crawford. Safe, for now. Bishop smiled. That depends entirely on what happens in the next few minutes. You wanted the evidence. I brought it. Elena held up the envelope. Everything my father gathered. Everything Knox preserved. 20 years of your crimes documented and verified. Put it on the ground. Elena complied. Set the envelope on the grass beside her father's headstone. Now step back. She stepped back. One of Bishop's men moved forward, retrieved the envelope, brought it to his boss. Bishop opened it, examined the contents. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Your father was thorough, he said. I'll give him that. He was a patriot, unlike you. Patriotism is a matter of perspective. Bishop closed the envelope. I've kept this country safe for 20 years, created enemies we could defeat, funded operations that Congress would never approve, made hard choices that weaker men couldn't make. You sold weapons to terrorists. I managed controlled chaos. There's a difference. Tell that to the soldiers who died fighting enemies armed with your weapons. Bishop's jaw tightened. Casualties of war. Acceptable losses. My father wasn't acceptable. He was a hero. Your father was a liability. Bishop's voice hardened. He discovered things he shouldn't have discovered. Threatened to expose operations that were vital to national security. I did what I had to do. You had Sterling shoot him in the back of the head. I gave the order. Sterling carried it out. Bishop shrugged. Division of labor. Elena felt the rage building inside her. 27 years of grief and anger coalescing into something pure, something focused. Where is Sterling now? On a plane to Argentina. By the time you could possibly reach him, he'll be gone." Bishop smiled. "But that's not your concern anymore." He raised his hand. The 4 men around him raised their weapons. "You understand I can't let you leave," Bishop said. "You've seen too much. Know too much. You're too dangerous to live." Elena's hand moved toward her weapon. "Don't." Bishop's voice was sharp. "Any sudden moves and my men will cut you down before you clear the holster." Elena's hand stopped, but she didn't lower it. "You're going to kill me either way." "Yes, but I can make it quick, painless, like your father. 1 shot, and it's over. And Sullivan Hayes Crawford, they'll live, as long as you cooperate." Elena looked at her father's headstone, at the name carved there, at the dates that marked a life cut short. Don't become the thing you're fighting against. But some battles couldn't be won with mercy. Some enemies couldn't be defeated with restraint. "I have a counteroffer," she said quietly. "You're not in a position to make counteroffers." "No," Elena met Bishop's eyes. "Right now, Agent Marcus Drake is arresting Victor Sterling at Dulles International. He was picked up 20 minutes ago trying to board a flight to Buenos Aires." Bishop's expression flickered. Just slightly. Just for a moment. "You're bluffing. Call him. Ask for proof of life." Elena smiled grimly. "I'll wait." Bishop's hand moved to his phone. He dialed. Waited. His face went pale. "What do you mean he's in custody?" Elena couldn't hear the other end of the conversation, but she could read Bishop's expression. Shock. Then fear. Then rage. "Find out who talked. Find out how they knew." Bishop's voice was shaking. "And get me out of here. Now!" He ended the call, his eyes locked on Elena's. "You clever little bitch." "Sterling's talking, right now, telling Drake everything in exchange for a deal." Elena's voice was steady. "Every operation, every payment, every murder, including my father's." "He wouldn't dare. He's a coward. You said it yourself. He was only ever in it for the money. And now the money's gone." Bishop's hand tightened on his weapon. For a moment, Elena thought he was going to shoot her himself. Finish what he started 7 years ago. But then she heard it. The sound of helicopters. Multiple aircraft approaching fast. Bishop's head snapped toward the sky. "FBI tactical units," Elena said. "Drake's been tracking my position since I left Phoenix. He's got a team inbound." "You said you came alone." "I lied." Bishop's face contorted with rage. He raised his weapon, aimed it at Elena's head. "If I'm going down, you're coming with me." "Maybe." Elena's hand closed on her Glock. "But are you fast enough?" For a frozen moment, neither of them moved. Bishop's finger tightened on the trigger. Elena's muscles coiled, ready to draw. Then Torres's rifle cracked from half a mile away. The man to Bishop's right dropped. Head shot. Clean. Chaos erupted. Bishop's men scattered, looking for cover, returning fire toward Torres's position. Elena dove behind her father's headstone, that same marble slab that had witnessed his surrender, his execution, his burial. Now it was saving his daughter's life. Gunfire exploded around her. Bullets chipped the stone, ricocheted off the ground. Elena drew her Glock, returned fire. One of Bishop's men went down. Then another. The helicopters were overhead now, spotlights flooding the cemetery, tactical teams rappelling down. Bishop was running, sprinting toward the perimeter, toward the darkness, toward escape. Elena rose and gave chase. She caught him at the edge of Section 60, tackled him from behind. They went down hard, rolling across the grass, grappling for control. Bishop was older, slower, but he was desperate. He fought like a cornered animal, gouging, biting, trying to reach the weapon at his hip. Elena got her arm around his neck, squeezed. "This is for my father," she hissed. Bishop's struggles weakened. His face turned red, then purple. "Elena." "Stop." Drake's voice, running toward them, FBI agents surrounding them. Elena squeezed harder. Bishop's eyes bulged. His legs stopped kicking. "Don't become the thing you're fighting against." Her father's words, her father's voice. She let go. Bishop collapsed, gasping, coughing. FBI agents swarmed over him, pinning him down, cuffing his hands behind his back. Drake helped Elena to her feet. "You okay?" "I'm fine." She wasn't fine. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was hammering. She'd been seconds away from murder, but she'd stopped. She'd chosen not to become like Bishop. That had to count for something. "Sullivan," she asked. "Hayes Crawford. Found them. Bishop had them in a warehouse in Virginia. They're shaken up, but alive." Drake's expression softened. "You saved them, Elena. All of them. My father saved them. I just finished what he started." They brought Bishop to his feet. His face was twisted with hate, pure, undiluted rage directed at the woman who had destroyed everything he'd built. "This isn't over," he spat. "I have friends, powerful friends. You think prison can hold me? You think—" "Shut up." Elena stepped close enough to smell his fear. "You killed my father. You shot him while he was unarmed, while he was surrendering. You took him from me." Bishop sneered. "He deserved what he got. He was weak, sentimental, just like you." Elena's fist connected with his jaw before anyone could stop her. Bishop's head snapped back. Blood sprayed from his split lip. He would have fallen if the FBI agents hadn't been holding him. Drake grabbed Elena's arm. "That's enough." "No," Elena shook him off. "It's not enough. It will never be enough." She looked at Bishop one last time. "But it's a start." They took him away, loaded him into an armored vehicle, drove him toward a cell that would hold him for the rest of his life. Elena stood alone at her father's grave. The sun was starting to rise. Golden light painted the headstones. Thousands of heroes sleeping beneath the earth. Her father was among them. A real hero now. His name cleared, his sacrifice honored. She knelt beside the stone, pressed her hand against the cold marble. "I finished it, Dad," she whispered. "I finished what you started." The wind moved through the cemetery. For a moment, just a moment, Elena could have sworn she heard her father's voice. "I'm proud of you, Lily. I always was." 3 months passed like a fever dream. The congressional hearing room was packed. Cameras everywhere, reporters crowding the doorways, spectators filling every available seat. The Senate Intelligence Committee sat at their elevated bench, waiting. Elena Vasquez walked toward the witness table. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. Every eye in the room followed her. She sat down, raised her right hand. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do." The chairman leaned forward, Senator Marcus Williams from Texas. 70 years old, face like weathered stone, voice like gravel. "Miss Vasquez, before we begin, I want to acknowledge the extraordinary courage you've demonstrated. Your father would be proud." Elena's throat tightened. "Thank you, Senator. Now, in your own words, please tell this committee what happened to your father and what you discovered about Colonel Raymond Bishop's network." Elena took a breath, looked at the faces staring at her, the cameras recording every word. Then she told them everything. She started with her childhood, the training sessions in Montana, the shooting drills that began when she was 8 years old, the footwork patterns her father invented and taught only to her. She described the shooting range at Coronado, the 53 seconds that changed everything, the moment she proved she was her father's daughter. She told them about Commander Langley, about the helmet cam footage, about the terrible truth it revealed Captain Michael Vasquez surrendering to someone in American uniform right before that someone executed him. She described the investigation. Sullivan, Hayes, Torres, Knox, the people who helped her, the people who died trying to expose the truth. She laid out Bishop's network, 20 years of weapons sales to hostile forces, $2.8 billion in illegal transactions, technology that ended up in the hands of ISIS, Hezbollah, Russian intelligence, Chinese military procurement. She told them about Sterling, the quiet communications specialist who'd been Bishop's assassin all along, the man who pulled the trigger on her father. She described the confrontation at Arlington, Bishop's confession, the firefight, the arrest. 3 hours. Without notes. Without hesitation. When she finished, the room was silent. Senator Williams stood slowly. His joints creaked. His eyes glistened. Then he saluted. One by one, the other senators rose. Saluted. A standing ovation in a congressional hearing. The kind of thing that never happened. But it was happening now. Miss Vasquez, Williams said, his voice rough with emotion. Your father was a hero. The kind of hero this nation produces too rarely. And you, he paused, steadied himself. You've proven that heroism is inherited. This committee thanks you for your service, for your courage, for refusing to let justice die. Elena nodded. Her eyes were burning, but she refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of the cameras. Senator, may I say one more thing? Of course. Elena looked directly into the nearest camera, knowing millions were watching, knowing her words would be replayed, quoted, remembered. My father taught me that the measure of a person isn't how they live. It's what they leave behind. Her voice was steady, strong. Colonel Bishop thought he could bury the truth, thought he could silence everyone who threatened his power. He was wrong. She paused. The truth always comes out. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. And when it does, no amount of money, no amount of power, no amount of connections can protect you. She stood. My father died trying to expose a traitor. I finished what he started, and I want everyone watching to know this. If you're covering up crimes, if you're protecting corrupt men, if you're hiding the truth, we're coming for you. All of you. She walked out of the hearing room without looking back. The investigation that followed consumed Washington like wildfire. Bishop's network was larger than anyone had imagined. The FBI made 47 arrests in the first week alone. 3 senators, 2 Pentagon generals, 12 defense contractor CEOs, dozens of mid-level officials who'd been taking bribes, falsifying reports, enabling treason. Drake led the operation, worked 18-hour days, lost 15 pounds, but he never complained. This was the case he'd been building toward his entire career. Sterling cooperated fully, named names, provided testimony, drew maps of the network that stretched across continents. He avoided the death penalty in exchange for his cooperation. Got life without parole instead. Elena had wanted more. Wanted him to suffer the way her father had suffered, but she accepted the deal. Justice wasn't always satisfying, but it was justice. The trials began in June. Bishop's was first. The evidence was overwhelming: financial records, communication intercepts, photographs. And his own confession recorded at Arlington broadcast live to millions. The jury took 40 minutes to convict. The judge gave him life without parole. No possibility of release. Ever. Elena watched from the gallery as they led him away in chains. His face was pale, defeated. The arrogance that had defined him for decades had finally cracked. He didn't look at her, didn't acknowledge her existence. She didn't need him to. She knew what she'd accomplished, what her father had sacrificed for. Victory didn't need validation from the vanquished. Sullivan found her outside the courthouse. He looked different than he had 3 months ago. The weight he'd carried since Ramadi, since her father saved his life and died for it, seemed lighter now. "Hell of a thing," he said quietly. "Yeah. Your father would be proud. People keep saying that. Because it's true." Sullivan turned to face her. "I served with Ghost for 15 years, watched him train hundreds of operators, but I never saw anyone like you." Elena felt tears threatening again, pushed them back. "He built me for this, trained me for this moment without ever telling me what he was doing. That's what parents do. Prepare their kids for battles they might not be around to fight." "Did he ever tell you about what he was planning?" Sullivan shook his head. "Not directly, but I knew something was wrong in those last weeks. He was different, focused, like a man getting his affairs in order. He knew he was going to die." "I think so. Yeah." Elena was quiet for a moment, processing. "He chose it," she said finally. "He could have run, could have disappeared. But he stayed because he knew Bishop would come after me if he didn't." "That sounds like Ghost." Sullivan's voice cracked slightly. Always protecting everyone else, never thinking about himself. I used to resent him for dying, for leaving me alone, for missing all the moments a father should be there for. And now I understand. He didn't abandon me. He gave me a mission, a purpose, something to live for." Sullivan nodded slowly. "What are you going to do now that it's over?" Elena thought about it. Really thought about it. "It's not over," she said. "Bishop's network is dismantled, but there are others, other corrupt officials, other traitors, other people who think they can get away with murder because they have power and connections. You're going to keep fighting. Someone has to." Sullivan smiled. It was the first real smile Elena had seen from him. "Your father said the same thing once, right after Ramadi. I asked him why he kept putting himself in danger when he had a daughter at home. You know what he told me? What? He said, because if good men stop fighting, the bad men win. And I won't let my daughter grow up in a world run by bad men." Elena felt the tears finally break through. She didn't fight them this time. "I miss him," she whispered. "Every day. I miss him so much." Sullivan pulled her into a hug, the kind of embrace her father used to give her, strong, protective, unconditional. "I know," he said quietly. "I know." They stood there for a long moment, two people bound together by grief and gratitude, and the memory of a man who'd given everything. Finally, Elena pulled back, wiped her eyes. "Thank you," she said, "for believing me, for helping me, for risking your career and your life." "I owed your father, still do." Sullivan squeezed her shoulder. "But more than that, I believed in you. From the moment you walked into that shooting range and dropped all 5 of us in under a minute. 53 seconds. Right, 53 seconds. Sullivan laughed. "Your father's record was 57. You beat him by 4 seconds. He would have been insufferable about that. He would have claimed I cheated. Absolutely. Would have demanded a rematch." Elena smiled. For the first time in months, it felt genuine. "I'm going back to Montana," she said. "My cabin. Need some time to process." "Understandable. But I'm not staying forever. There's more work to do." "I figured." When Sullivan reached into his pocket, pulled out a business card. When you're ready, there are people in Washington who want to talk to you. Good people. The kind who actually want to make a difference. Elena took the card. FBI, Defense Intelligence, Congressional Liaisons. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a choice, same as your father had. You can walk away, go back to your cabin, live a quiet life. Nobody would blame you. Or you can keep fighting. Use everything your father taught you to make sure nobody else has to go through what you went through. Elena looked at the card, then at Sullivan. I already made my choice, 7 years ago, when I stood at my father's grave and promised myself I'd find out who killed him. And now I keep that promise, every day, for as long as it takes. Sullivan nodded. He really would be proud of you. I know. Elena tucked the card into her pocket. I finally know. 6 months after the trials ended, Elena stood at her father's grave in Arlington. The headstone had been updated. The lies scraped away. The truth carved in stone. Captain Michael Vasquez, United States Navy SEAL, 1975 to 2017. Hero. Father. Truth seeker. The measure of a man isn't how he lives, it's what he leaves behind. Fresh flowers rested against the marble. Someone had left them that morning. Elena didn't know who, didn't need to know. Her father was remembered now, honored. His sacrifice recognized by the nation he'd given everything to protect. Torres arrived first, then Hayes. Crawford. Sterling was absent, would be absent, forever rotting in a federal prison, but the others came. The men who'd served with her father. The men who'd helped her finish what he started. Sullivan was last. He walked slowly, carefully. The years were catching up with him, but his eyes were clear, his spine straight. Hell of a turnout, he said, looking at the small gathering. He deserved more. He got what mattered, the truth. Sullivan knelt, placed something on the grave. A challenge coin. Navy SEAL. The kind of thing operators gave each other to mark shared sacrifice. I should have given him this years ago, Sullivan said quietly. Kept putting it off, telling myself there'd be time. There's never enough time. No, there isn't. He stood slowly. That's why we have to use what we have. Do what we can. Leave something behind that matters. Elena nodded, looked at the headstone, at her father's name. I'm taking the job, she said. The one you offered. Defense Intelligence. Sullivan didn't look surprised. When do you start? Next month. They're setting up a new unit. Special investigations. Rooting out corruption in the defense establishment. Perfect fit. That's what I thought. Elena paused. Torres is coming with me. And Hayes. We're building a team. A team. The kind my father would have led, if he'd lived. And Sullivan smiled. He'd be insufferable about that too. Would have insisted on vetting everyone personally. I'm doing that anyway. Good. Sullivan turned to face her. One piece of advice. What? Don't lose yourself in this work. Your father did toward the end. Got so focused on the mission that he forgot to live. Forgot that some things matter more than catching bad guys. Like what? Like the people who love you. The moments that make life worth living. Sullivan's voice was heavy with regret. I made the same mistake, after Ramadi. Threw myself into the job. Lost 2 marriages. Barely saw my kids grow up. Is that why you're telling me this? I'm telling you because your father would want me to. He talked about you all the time. Said you were the best thing in his life. Said he'd give anything to have more time with you. Elena felt the tears threatening again. Fought them back. He gave everything, so I could live. then live. Really live. Don't just survive. Don't just fight. Sullivan put his hand on her shoulder. Find something worth fighting for. Someone worth coming home to. I'll try. That's all any of us can do. The others were gathering around the grave now. Hayes with his family. Torres with his wife. Crawford with his teenage daughter. Elena looked at them. These people who'd risked everything to help her, who'd believed in her when belief seemed foolish, who'd followed her into darkness and emerged into light. Thank you, she said. All of you. Thank your father, Torres replied. He's the one who built you. He built something else too, Elena said. He built this, all of us, connected by what he sacrificed, bound together by what we survived. She stepped forward, pressed her palm against the cold marble of her father's headstone. I promise, she whispered. I'll keep fighting. I'll protect the people who can't protect themselves. I'll expose the truth no matter how ugly, and I'll never forget what you taught me. The wind moved through the cemetery, rustling the flags on 1,000 graves, carrying the sounds of America traffic sirens, the distant hum of a city that never slept. Elena closed her eyes, and for just a moment she could have sworn she felt her father's hand on her shoulder. Warm, strong, proud. I love you, Dad, she said. I'll make you proud, every day, for the rest of my life. She opened her eyes. The feeling faded, but something remained. Certainty, purpose, resolve. Elena Vasquez Ghost's daughter walked away from her father's grave for the last time. She had work to do. Bad men to catch. Truth to expose. Her father had lit the fire. She would carry the torch. 1 year later, Elena sat in a briefing room at the Pentagon. Files spread across the table. Photographs, financial records, intelligence reports, a new case, a new network of corruption, another traitor hiding in the shadows. Torres sat to her left, Hayes to her right, a team of investigators behind them, all hand-picked, all vetted, all believers. What do we have? Elena asked. Torres slid a photograph across the table. A man in a general's uniform. Distinguished. Powerful. The kind of face that inspired trust. The kind of face that could hide anything. General Robert Thornton, Torres said. 3-star, currently commanding operations in the Pacific Theater. We've got evidence he's been selling intelligence to Chinese military procurement. How solid? Solid enough to move. But we need more before we can take him down. Elena studied the photograph, saw the arrogance in the man's eyes, the certainty that he was untouchable. The same certainty Bishop had shown, right up until the moment it all came crashing down. Then we get more, she said. We dig deeper. We find the truth. And when we find it? Elena smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Then we bury him. She stood, walked to the window, looked out at Washington, the monuments, the buildings, the symbols of a nation that still believed in justice. Her father had given his life for that belief, had died so the truth could live. Now, it was her turn to carry the weight, to fight the battles, to protect the innocent and punish the guilty. She touched the dog tags hanging around her neck. Her father's tags. The only thing she had left of him. We finish what he started, she said quietly. Always. Behind her, the team rose, ready to move, ready to fight. The hunt continued. And Elena Vasquez, the woman who'd crushed 5 Navy SEALs in under a minute, who'd brought down a Pentagon colonel who'd avenged her father's murder, was just getting started. Because some battles never end. Some truths never stop demanding to be told. And some heroes leave behind more than memories. They leave behind legacies. Legacies that change the world.